Imagine a place where the boundaries of age, industry, background, and culture melt away, replaced by a shared desire to explore the depths of our collective experiences. Here, on the open, shaded porch, amidst an atmosphere of serenity and tranquility, leaders from all walks of life gather to share their stories, the stories that shape their very beings and doings. This is the Knowledge Mindfulness Porch with Layla Marouf.
I'm back on the Knowledge Mindfulness Porch with Globivest's Jasmine Busson and Laura Joy Boulos. Founded in 2016, Globivest was initially a family office with the goal of making investments in cutting-edge technology. But it has evolved into an institutional VC firm that concentrates on funding startups that have both financial returns and significant effects in the areas of social inclusion, education, health, and the environment. Now, Laura Joy, before we continue talking about the work you're doing at your firm, I'd love to dig into your research. A few years ago, you were the winner of the L'Oréal UNESCO Rising Talent Award for your groundbreaking research in decision-making. Can you tell us about what you've learned?
Of course. First, I'm so looking forward to the day where I can actually give you a proper solution or a proper answer, because my answer is going to be most probably deceiving. But one of the reasons is that I've been working on this project for the past 3 years, not even that, 2 years and something, on the impact of chronic multi-crisis contexts on mental health, on brain health beyond disease, on apparently healthy individuals. Exactly the way you said it, to sort of understand how we navigate uncertainty, how we make decisions in these contexts. And before that, I used to work on decision making, but in other contexts. And the main reason why I got so excited about joining Jasmine and Globivest and the whole team is exactly because I'm frustrated by the pace of research and the fact that when you, Layla, who have wrote this book with all these answers in a way, like when some people come with answers and then research takes so much time to have an answer. This is why the VC world sort of bridges the gap between research and innovation. So this is one answer, but then I'll try to give you something more to still chew on, because I want to find answers and shortcuts. I think shortcuts are okay sometimes. One thing that is very interesting in our results is that, for instance, in Lebanon specifically, to take the case of Lebanon, because it's very representative, it's a context of chronicity and crisis and uncertainty for the past decades, plural, not just one decade. And because of that, the generations, the populations are very interesting throughout the generations, very interesting to work on. And through our projects, our research project, this INSA, the project is called INSA for forget in Arabic. One major discovery that we haven't published yet, so we can't talk too much about it, is that we have a group of resilient people, but not resilient, just resilient. Like, it's very resilient. We compare our groups, our comparison groups are based in France, and when we compare French healthy people to Lebanese healthy people, the Lebanese seem to not just survive, but really with this Nassim Taleb's concept of anti-fragility, they get up and they're they go out of all these stresses and difficulties and challenges reinforced as if it was a therapy, as if going through all these. And in a way, what it means, if we go back to decision processes, is that the previous decision-making processes are used not just to learn from the mistakes as a regular trial and error in a healthy context, but more to say that regardless of the outcome, we have to find yet another strategy. So in a way, we have this very, very big cognitive flexibility. And here I'm doing this shortcut that I was talking about, but it's most probably we need to test a hypothesis. But it most probably means that we have a very strong flexibility, cognitive flexibility, that allows us not only to use existing models, but to be okay with the fact that potentially none of the models that we're learning are going to be useful for the new situation to come. And in this way, it's fascinating. And I do think it's true. I think we have this, we call it adaptation, we call it resilience, we call it whatever we call it, anti-fragility. But at the end of the day, our brains are ready to rewire and rewire again and are expecting the situation to come to be completely new, which makes us as little lazy as possible. We're not lazy. And I'm talking about Lebanese because it's a population that we've studied, that I've studied closely with my research team, with my research group. But it's probably the same with any other population that has been undergoing, or communities, doesn't have to be a whole population that has been undergoing uncertainty or a chronic crisis.
I think that's amazing because I think in today's business world, in the leadership literature and, the Ivy League universities, you see a lot of the talk about creative resilience coming forward and being, how do we get that competencies for leaders nowadays to be creative, to be resilient, because we are in what they call a VUCA world. So this is a very volatile, uncertain world that we are in right now. And there's a lot of disruptions that can come in that I think, a country like Lebanon, with all the crises that they were facing for so many years, and, could be a great case studies, a great inspiration for those leaders to take from of those lessons, hopefully to be learned and applied in certain other contexts. But that brings me also, Jasmine, to a question about what are the unique values that you think is there in the culture at Globivest that can attract talent?
I hope we are letting people, or giving this image of being as inclusive as possible, and also not trying to support or invest ideas that would either mean not very much or that would not affect the planet in a positive way. And I think that the five of us, with Jessica El Hosseini and Sophie Makhzoumi and Laura Joy, we're always trying, when we speak to founders, to deliver that message. And it's a very tricky position to talk to founders as VCs. At the end of the day, I wonder what founders think about VCs most of the time. It's VCs delivering capital support. And there's very little, I think, people or VC in the world today that are truly hands-on. And I think this is something, a promise we try to keep as much as possible. Be as supportive, as hands-on, be able to really hear the founders, be there for the good moments, but also for the bad ones, because being an entrepreneur is extremely hard. And I think it takes a certain type of profile to be able to have the shoulders to really start a company from scratch to something enormous that could potentially disrupt a whole sector. So I think it's really being true to ourselves as first, and then to founders, and try to keep our promise.
Jasmine is a people person, and not in the cliche kind of way. She manages, everyone likes her. I'm the first victim. So everyone likes her. And what's very interesting is that I heard people say that she's an empath, that she feels with others. And it's absolutely true. But what most of these people who say that don't know is that she's an empath in her real life, but professionally, she uses that empathy as a tool, as an instrument it doesn't mean that that it makes her less of an empath. No, on the contrary, but she uses it to actually understand how people can feel about a given situation, and then to predict how they would react in this given situation. And I think that I wouldn't have said it a few years back before meeting Jasmine, but I think that empathy at the end of the day is an amazing skill to have as a leader, whatever leading means, as a group member, as a team, as a partner professionally. And I think it's also people we're looking for. It's a skill in a way that we're not just a trait, a skill that we're looking for in people usually.
I so much agree with that. I think in an AI era that we're living in, a more human-centered leadership, and like you're saying, empathetic, compassionate, kind, that feels and understands their employees, their investors. I mean, what else someone can look for? It will be amazing to have such a leader. But that brings me to a question about AI and the world we're living in right now. I mean, I would love to hear some insights about what do you think about AI-led health tech that is coming on the market right now, that is there in both ways. I would love to hear, the pros, but I would love to also hear the cons.
It's funny you say that, Leila, because we received actually a few days ago the opportunity to invest in Neuralink, which is the latest tech bio company from Elon Musk. And we have received over the years some companies with an AI, very strong AI aspect, and we sometimes decided not to invest. I'm not talking about Neuralink, we're still discussing, but we do have these internal discussions where we try to really stay as ethical as possible when choosing a company. And AI is tricky, it's fascinating, and there are tons of positive aspects with AI, but there's also this ethical aspect that we hope we won't, push or encourage, even though us as Globivest, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, if a company succeeds and it's, not really great for the environment, it will end up succeeding with Globivest or not. But it's important, I think, to take the time to sometimes just take a pause and ask this question. And I think I'm going to leave the floor to Laura Joy, because AI, and especially brain tech, because at the end of the day, AI is that. It's just, replicating what humans are in a much faster and more intelligent way to some aspects. But yeah, I'm going to leave the floor to Laura Joy.
Laura Joy, can you shed some light, specific light, not on certain companies, but about just shedding some light about the pros and cons of AI in the health arena?
As you said, Leila, the pros, there are lots of pros about applying AI to the healthcare and the health tech scene, the health tech space. One of them is going to be the most obvious is to develop new drugs, to accelerate the development of new drugs. And for the past couple of years, we've been hearing a lot the word tech bio, that is sort of replacing the word biotech, where you're not just discovering new drugs, but you're leveraging on AI. You're leveraging AI and algorithmic tools, machine learning, to accelerate this drug development, to find new molecules that are that have stronger efficacy, better tolerability, less side effects, etc., etc. So everything that's about drug development definitely is going to benefit from AI. Then, if we go to, I'm giving some examples. If you go to the healthcare, obviously, health costs a lot. Depending on the countries, we can see the budgets being reduced. We can see the politics never agreeing on whether we should increase or reduce the budgets, whether we should have healthcare for all or not. Of course, for me, it's ridiculous to even have a debate around the question, but still the question is there. So in that sense, AI is going to alleviate the burden of all these doctors, paramedical teams, hospital clinics that are under pressure, under constant pressure, and where at the end of the day, patients and humans are paying the price of this pressure, because the care is being altered or reduced in quality. We're losing some quality. So in that sense, AI tools are definitely going to benefit healthcare, alleviate the burden that is put on members of the medical teams. And then one thing that is also very interesting is everything that regards preventive and precision medicine. And what I like about precision medicine is this idea of that there is no one solution for all, and we should actually look for populations, small groups, communities, clusters of individuals, or even individuals alone that can benefit from specific types of therapies that others can't benefit from. And here as well, AI is going to help define these populations and understand what solution is better for who. And this is definitely one of the most promising and exciting approaches of AI. And I would pack in the same package, I would put in the same category, everything that's holistic, that's really about preventive medicine, preventing a disease. And it's anchored in this idea of longevity. We're going to live longer. And the pros are obvious and we can't deny it. And I think they're so massive that we absolutely can't say no to AI in any way. The genie is out of the bottle. So there is no reason. Like, I don't see why we would argue about like pros and cons, but I think that there's one massive con, as you said, one massive negative aspect. There are many negative things. Ethical committees can take care of them. A few things, obviously, of how AI is going to be used, and it's hard to. There are a few problems, but for me, the main challenge is going to be the pace. I'm writing this paper. I've been writing it for the past month on the impact of AI on the brain, and I called it brain digitalization. It's all happening so fast. And obviously, we're very excited to, like, I don't know, I hope no one in your families or in anyone who's listening to us ever had a cancer or someone close with a cancer. But obviously, if we can accelerate a solution, I think we all know we'd be happy. But the space, it's allowed for our brains. It's happening so fast again. And I think this is the main, I don't want to call it danger, but challenge. And there's definitely a challenge. And unfortunately, humans are so greedy, I guess, that we don't take the pauses that we should be taking. We don't take long enough pauses to be able to absorb what is happening, to be able to analyze, and it's something that we're losing a lot because machines are learning to analyze. We're losing this ability, to use our prefrontal cortex to actually think, not just make a decision. There's a reason why the whole information goes up there to this cortical areas. It's supposed to stay there a while. It's supposed to be, cogitated and then send and I think this is, really the main alert for me would be this really very fast movement happening with AI. I think this is also why people have been talking about risks and people are scared sometimes. I don't know if we should be. I don't think fear is ever a good response. I think it's really about thinking, using the fact that we are able to use our cognitive processes, our higher executive functions. Let's use them.
I agree. I think, like you said, fear comes because there's lack of understanding. And I think the more we understand, the less fearful we become. But personally, coming from the knowledge field and knowledge theory, it always, raises a question. You were talking about intelligence. And I think, yes, there's augmented intelligence with AI, but I feel personally we need also soul and emotional intelligence that can deal with that deal with the intentions, deal with the decision making to make it more responsible. Because as you were talking, about the thesis, about linking the healthy human with a healthy environment could be the context that we're living in. And taking that ability to synthesize, to analyze, and to make your own decisions, I think that is maybe sometimes the tricky part in all this that I personally see. Like you said, we need to be positive, but maybe elevate our understanding about so many of this. And this is where I feel partnerships coming together with a community that can enlighten so many of our blind spots. And, they can shed some light on many of that. But I would love to hear more about what are you reading, Jasmine, these days? I know Laura Joy is so much into this interdisciplinary research and different fields coming together. I think this is where the spark happens all the time. But I don't know, Jasmine, do you read different fields? What is the book that you're reading right now?
It's funny you say that, Leila. Actually, apart from articles or, anything to read on the latest news about VCs and startups and so on, I really like to hear about testimonies and stories. I get inspired by a lot of people and it adds richness to my everyday routine. And what I really like to do when I'm not working is actually take the time to read des romans, romance books, like nothing to do with work, just try and dream about something else. And I think these people, these writers, I mean, you should know, but it takes a lot to be a writer. It's very demanding. There's a lot of discipline. And I think through personal stories, through just sharing, whether it's talking about feminism, capitalistic environments, all of that adds a lot of richness to one's journey. So I try not to focus on work when I'm reading. It adds some depth to the everyday journey. But what about you, Laura Joy? I'm curious. I haven't asked you that question for a while.
At first, I wanted to say I love your approach of reading, Jasmine, because as you said, as often as possible, when I see you with a book, at least you're always trying to sort of take a step back and get into a different world, but then use it in a way or another for your profession and your life, your daily life. I think the book I've been reading, and it's more about the context. I realized that I can read on an elliptical. So I've been reading while doing my cardio, and I love it. I feel like it's so it's really, I feel like I'm not wasting my time, and I feel like I'm allowed to do it. It's a book in French called L'homme aux trois lettres. It's a writer called Pascal Quignard. And it's a book about literature, about what it means to write, what it means to read, about and the trois lettres, l'homme aux trois lettres. It's actually it goes back to God. The three letters are God. For Quignard, at least, it's really this spiritual approach of something very intellectual. I like it. I'm very much enjoying it.
I'm reading a lot now in the different philosophies, the ancient philosophies. So I started with the Taoism, Buddhism, and the Sufism, and I'm trying to find a thread of similarities between all those philosophies, because I feel, the essence of all these ancient philosophies is really how does it make your life easier? How does it give you the guidance and support to create your own path in this life? And I just love it. It just kind of, opens my mind and in a lot of ways. But that brings me also to time, because a lot of people now complain about time and we don't have time to read. Oh my God, this is a big book, or and everyone wants everything so fast. I want 5 tips for this and 3 tips for that and 10 tips for this. And the problem is, how do we do this? How do we maintain the meaning, the deeper understanding when there's no time? Jasmine, tell us a little bit about the challenge of time being maybe also with your life as an entrepreneur, as a daughter, as with all the responsibilities of being a woman also in this world.
I love this question. I think I realized a few years back, someone told me you have to pick your battles, because I used to be on so many fronts at the same time. And it's super interesting and it's a bit selfish, but at the end of the day, you do not end up, it's impossible to really be on top of things, deliver as much as you can when you're doing so many different things at the same time. And I think VC is a bit that, you have to be there for the entrepreneurs. You have to talk to new people all the time, read about different sectors, be there for your investors, deliver as much as you can, travel. So I decided with the launch of the first close, after the first close actually, to take at least an afternoon per week for myself and do a different kind of activity. And it's kind of sacred in my agenda. I would not move it. And I think it's important because if not, you start at 8, you end up at 6:37 and time flies, and you want to give back. You want to be there for your job 100% for the people you love. But I think it's important to take time for yourself. And I'm not doing it enough. I hope with time I will be able to. But yeah, it's a way of coping with everything happening in life. And I wish Laura Joy would do that a bit more, actually, because she just told you she's reading and doing her sports. So
That's called efficiency, being effective and efficient. Any techniques, any tips, Laura Joy, you want to share with us?
Maybe not today. I was going to start with the relativity theory. Time doesn't pass; it's us passing. And which brings me again to sports. Our PT, Jasmine and I, he always tells us when we're rushing a movement, he's like, "But enjoy the movement. We're suffering with our muscles or contracted." I'm like, "What am I enjoying here?" But it's true. It's enjoy. It's to enjoy, because at the end of the day, it's us who are passing by. It's not time. Time is barely I don't know what it is. Actually, a space and time component of relativity theory. So this, and then it also brings me back, as you asked about reading at first, how people consume books, but exactly the way you seem to approach reading and life, probably. I'm stipulating later, but from the way you're talking, it's not meant to be consumed. It's meant to be lived. Everything is meant to be lived. One of the books that my mom got me lots of books when I was a kid, and still gets me books, actually. And one of the books was a Daniel Pennac book. It's a list of 10 commandments on how to read. And he calls it commandments, but exactly like the commandments, at the end of the day, they're restrictions that give you freedom. And one of the things that he says is, there is no moment, there's no time to read. The time to read is stolen, exactly like the time to love. You can say to your partner, "Hey, it's time to love." And you can't say, "Hey, it's time to read." If you want to read, you're going to steal some time to read. And you're not going to steal it to consume a book. You're going to steal because you want to read. Because exactly like you said, you want to explore the link between Buddhism and Sufism and whatnot. And it's not consumption. It's life. It's living.
Wow, I think these are words of wisdom, Laura Joy. And I want Jasmine to give us some words of wisdom, last words of wisdom for our audience. What do you leave us with?
I think it's really important to love what you're doing. And it's very easy for me to say that, coming from a privileged position. But at least if you're not today doing something you love, try to really have that in the back of your mind and work towards this, because we have to work, whether you're an artist or, sitting behind the desk from 9 to 5, try to enjoy it as much as you can, or choose a path that, will make you love what you do, and take the time to live. Really take the time to live, to have a glass of wine from time to time, meet new people, be true to yourself, and laugh a bit, laugh about life. Do not be too serious.
I'd love to thank you, both of you, for the time, for the insights. I learned so much today, and I'm so excited to hear more about your successful funds. And I'm sure I'm going to hear more about a lot of that interconnection between impact and monetary gains. And I think hopefully this will be the norm, as we said, and not the exception. Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Thank you, Leila. It has been a real pleasure. And as Laura Joy said, it's time that was very well consumed, being together today for this hour. And very much looking forward to getting to know you a bit more over time.
Same here. Thank you so much, Laura Joy. And I would love to see you in person in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila.
And that concludes this week's Knowledge Mindfulness Porch. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss any new episodes. If you have a moment, we would greatly appreciate if you could leave us a review, helping other amazing individuals like yourself discover us. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.
You have been listening to the Knowledge Mindfulness Porch with Layla Marouf. If you want to join the movement of knowledge mindfulness and shape the world of tomorrow, go to drlaylamarouf.com. The Knowledge Mindfulness Porch is a production of Forbes Books.